Yeah.
Hope the fire department does.
More cheat sheets.
Thank you.
Does this include any of the other my stuff? Watch yourself.
I might need.
So I'll give it
I gave her one already.
seconds here. Are you guys ready? I don't think so. I gotta put it in a second.
I just, let me find my agenda.
I thought that you were talking with her.
Do you have a extra pen?
All right.
Thank you.
I'm gonna take mine back then.
Apparently I
All right, we'll
left it
call the
somewhere.
Administration and Finance Committee meeting to order. All 5 members are present. And new and previous matters, number 1 is the 2020 City of West Allis Mayor's recommended budget. Who wants to go?
What's this?
I passed Rebecca Grill, City Administrator. I'm here with Peggy Stino, who's our Finance Director. Passed out a sheet of funding options. We discussed last week when we met different things that, priorities that should be considered for funding. And this sheet has that information. There's different categories. The first is is bonding, including bonding for the streetlight conversion. If the estimates are, if we do that next year, we would need $800,000 if we did it internally, or $1.6 million if we contract that, including $505,000 for public works equipment purchases, because those are not in the general fund budget. There's a list of capital improvement committee bonding recommendations: emerald ash borer removal, tree replacement planting, boulevard landscape bend consolidation, playground improvements, fire station 3 HVAC, health department facility maintenance, library facility maintenance improvements, concrete saw, electronic parking citations, security camera replacement, Office 365 expansions, and electronic poll books, for a total of $544,248. The overall bonding is over $2.6 million. This would be on top of the bonding that is normally done for streets. Then the second section, we're estimating about $573,000 possibly for carryover, barring any major events in the next month and a half. So their recommendation is to allocate that towards the fire department debt payment, the chiller replacement, community development grant restriction, traffic engineering for possible removal of traffic signals, FDA fund replacement, PC replacements for 2020, municipal yard overhead door, municipal yard north garage maintenance, and the inventory charge out. 3 of those items you'll see towards the right of the document. It's saying that we should do those things in 2019. So that includes the PC replacements. Then the next, we had additional expenditure restraint in a little over $55,000. We do have AssetWorks, which is a new software in our public works facility. So there's a subscription cost for that of $55,000. So we'd recommend utilizing the additional expenditure restraint amount for that. And then if there's any amendments that result in additional, taking additional capacity, we would recommend moving those into a fund for emergency operational repairs. The last three items are the fire department intern funding, residential reval, and the neighborhood specialist position. At this point, there's no capacity for these unless there's significant changes in the budget. So if there's some type of changes through the structural deficit committee or something like that, which realizes more capacity for 2020, we would recommend bringing those things back into the budget and funding those through that. At the bottom of the,
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Alderman.
that's all right. Can you, just to make sure I understand here, so this bonding would be, well, positive or negative, depending how you look at it. It's budget neutral to what we need to tax. The carryover here would be a positive to the budget. To be offset with these issues, right?
it
These
wouldn't
things?
affect the 2020, it's
These aren't
2019
in,
funds.
these aren't in the budget.
Okay. The ERP is not in the budget either, but we're saying we would include it, but use it for the Asset Works subscription. Okay, I just want to make sure I understand all this. And then the capacity realized in 2020, question mark, can you explain that one more time? This is additional funding that, if it becomes available, these are the things that we want to put in the charge, correct?
That's what our
Just wanna make sure I
recommendation
got it all
is, yeah,
straight.
if
All right.
there's service delivery changes that result in excess capacity that we would be wanting for future years, but it likely would also result in some additional capacity during 2020, that's what we would recommend allocating that money towards.
Yeah, and further, just also so I have it straight, we would be able to afford and pay for everything in here except for these three items that I circled right here. Those are the three things
Correct.
that we're not going to do. We're not going to pay for these three right here.
And
Okay.
if I could just,
Yep.
one more thing, we do have, I mean, the 2.6 in borrowing, that's a lot of money in addition to the 3.75. But the estimate that we have for 2019 is, it's the best we could do, but it's pretty conservative. So my hope would be that we would have a little bit more than that available, and we perhaps could use some of it to not have to borrow, kind of like we did in the past years. So this would be a worst-case scenario.
Some of the 544,000 items listed there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Peggy, you had explained to our capital improvement committee about municipal borrowing and comparisons to what other cities are doing on this, and can you explain that for our group here also?
So lucky for us, we're in 2019 and we're first considering this at this point. Unfortunately, a number of cities have used this for a long time because capital outlay has basically been pushed out of most municipal budgets, probably going back to Act 1032 changes in 2011-12. So this is not an uncommon, this is certainly within all the realm of the accounting rules and regulations, but keep in mind, we have to pay it back. So it might not mean anything to the taxpayer this year, but then next year when we have to make our first debt payment, that's when it begins impacting the taxpayers. But yeah, most communities, this is how they pay for capital items is through some additional borrowing.
And they have been doing it for many years. This just happens to be a newer thing for us.
And Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Alderman
sorry.
Plesky. Or Alderman May, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
That's
Yeah.
right. And the interest payment on this in future years, or we have to account for principal plus interest in future.
Correct.
Oh,
Right, cost more, absolutely.
probably what, 170,000? Am I close?
If you can tell me if there's gonna be a recession next year,
Yeah.
I can probably tell you, but
What's the interest rate gonna be next
rates
year?
are pretty low right now. I mean, we're expecting under 3 right now for our borrowing for 2019. If it remains that way, we'd probably be looking at, worst case scenario, about 80,000 a year,
Oh, okay.
starting at the beginning, and then of course going down as we pay off the principal.
Alderman Weigel.
Related to that borrowing, I wanna take advantage of low interest rates. And I'm looking at like the chiller replacement. That looks like that could be bonded for, right? I mean, if we're bonding for HVAC at the fire station, why wouldn't we roll that chiller replacement into that package also?
So we could certainly do that, but the next category, the second category of carryovers, those are pretty much funds that you can only use for one-time items as well, so we're
Okay,
just
so
saying.
we wanna
we'll-
use that carryover up on that.
We use that,
Okay.
well, we just wanna use our
We use that first.
carryover up before we have to pay money for money.
Okay, okay. And then of our 3 remaining things, is this how we've prioritized it? 1, 2, and 3 in the order they're shown here? Is that any particular order? No?
No.
Okay.
Just leave that to the council to prioritize.
I'm just wondering what staff's recommendation was on that. So obviously they're different dollar amounts too.
When it
Right.
comes to funding as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Mickey, I tried to call on you before.
Right,
You
it's
haven't.
okay. I don't know where in this stuff it was, but I think we had put priorities for the carryovers on another sheet. On what was the top priority of that? I know it wasn't fire department debt fund. What, I got so many sheets, I don't know.
So, yeah, so those are the ones we talked about last time, so the majority of them are in the second category of carryover. The first one was that general fund health insurance contribution, and we actually subtracted that because, as we discussed yesterday at our Employee
Right.
Benefits Committee, we're gonna try to make some adjustments to the health
So-
insurance plan in order to accommodate that, because the dollars will go much further this way.
Oh,
the capital
so
needs.
because of that, we don't have to use the money there.
Correct,
Right,
and we're trying to look for the most unimpactful changes that will get us revenues, and it could be some things like change in premium share, step therapy on drugs, different things like that. So we're trying to not just trade dollar for dollar, but make just a little bit better decisions so we can fund a few more things and still have a viable health plan.
In this bond, you're right, we have to pay it all back. But this is for this year. What, every year now we're gonna be doing this? And paying back 80,000 or so every year?
Yeah.
So we just keep going down this hill, and eventually we're gonna hit the bottom somewhere.
Unfortunately, that's the path where we'd be on.
Or major service
It's
cuts.
hard, I was gonna say, in service delivery changes could perhaps lighten this load as well, but we all saw the capital infrastructure study. This is minimal compared to all of the needs we have going on, but like the street lighting one, we wouldn't expect that to go away for at least 13 years.
Right. How about all the cuts that Alderman May brought up in the last administration finance meeting? A
Okay,
whole
so
list of
that's-
things.
He has a list of them. I was gonna let him present those.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
That's actually, I think, the 50,000 right here, the amendments.
that's all?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because he took into account the other 55 already that I was gonna bring up, so.
Well, there was one in, Chairman, please. There was one in there that I, with all my notes, I didn't mention it at our last administration finance meeting, but it's for training and travel for the common council. Got budgeted $22,355. I think $2,355 would be fine. We should take another 20,000 from there. It says right here, 22,000.
I don't have that in front of me.
That's-
I'll look over your shoulder. What, I mean,
Well in excess of,
I remember the figure.
Yes, I
and you
think a
brought it
little
up.
excessive.
what page is that?
I don't
Page
know,
20,
I don't know if Road put some vacation in there or something,
Yeah.
that it went up so much. Page 20, yeah. Yeah.
Planning beds.
I've been to the legislative chamber at the Caymans, maybe I should write that off. Holy.
So that includes some memberships as well. Actually, 15,855 is memberships.
Is that like the APW memberships?
No, this is.
NLC?
CAD, ICC,
So you-
Public Policy Forum, Wisconsin League of Municipalities, and National League of Cities.
which the National League one is the one I'm proposing to cut out, so that'd be $3,400.
So
So then there's 6,500 in training and travel per se.
so
They
it's
get
training,
grouped
travel, and
together.
membership.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and then Rebecca, you were gonna talk about the staff adjustments, I think, before
Sure.
you got interrupted by me, so please go ahead.
On the bottom of the sheet, we list out the additional capacity of the expenditure restraint, which is 55,578, and then allocating that to the asset work subscription payment. We have to, when we expend, we need to have some revenues that match that expenditure. So there's some revenues listed here. Fire inspection fee change that was approved by the council last week. The estimate for that is $36,000. Dividends from CIVMIC, estimate of $6,000 that we didn't have previously. There is also a reduction of the municipal service payment revenue. We get municipal service payment from the state of Wisconsin because the state fair is located in the city of West Allis. However, the legislature does not fund it at a full capacity, so I believe our estimate of what we should be receiving is well in excess of $600,000.
It's about 38% that they're
Yeah.
funding it at.
So we get about 200 some thousand.
And they're cutting 21,000 this year.
Correct, 21,000
Yes,
less
more.
than last
Yes,
Less than last year.
Yes. So we have to take that out. So it's kind of a negative revenue. We thought we had it and we don't, when we were putting the budget together. And then the last item is perhaps additional through taxes, but it would be not affecting the rate.
I was gonna
correct?
say, if we could perhaps run through revenues again, you know, we have some wild cards in there, some interest income and different things like that. I'm pretty sure we could come up with 34,000 and not have to change the tax rate structure at this point. Certainly council's preference, but about 1 penny of tax rate is 38,000.
Sure.
Alderman Weigel.
That fire inspection fee, that's the false alarm fee. Aren't we, is that based on the number of false alarms we had last year? Aren't we gonna expect that, that's not gonna stay static, people are gonna figure out, cut down their false alarms, that number's gonna go down over the years.
Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Chableski.
But wait, I thought we raised the fee and then additional, these are false alarm fees.
This is new, this is new money, this 36K is that.
We had false alarm fees for police, but not for
for
fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
that,
Alderman
okay.
Chableski is correct, though. We raised our inspection fees, actually
Right.
increased it significantly.
Right.
For apartment inspections and.
We pretty much doubled that,
Right,
but
but
we've
they're
already
all
got
from
that
the
accounted
80s.
for.
So, but, okay.
I'm
Yeah,
saying
I-
is that that as soon as people get the first bill for the first one, they're gonna put duct tape over their pull box and
Yeah.
You'd be amazed
Yeah.
how they just,
they don't care,
Doing it.
because they don't get the bill, because the,
well,
Yeah.
sometimes it's not preventable
Yeah.
because it's like a bigger company and
that's a
different
tech
things
issue
like
or
that.
something,
Industrial facilities, that kind of thing, but yeah, it's unfortunate that
Yeah.
you continue seeing.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I don't think we can expect that number to be
And this is
that
until the
next year.
third time. So
Yeah, I
it's
understand
the
that,
third.
yeah, yeah. What I'm saying is, once somebody gets that bill the first time, they're gonna talk to their employees or whoever's doing it, and,
Probably it wouldn't be the same in 2021.
Right.
yeah, it might take
The
a year or two to
estimates,
teach
yeah.
people.
Maybe more.
So.
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Root.
On the boulevard reduction, I guess, Mr. Webking, Dave, how many are we getting for $13,000 for the, I know what you're doing with your eliminating all the flowering
Approximately 4.
left or four to do?
4 to do, yeah. For this budgeted amount.
Okay.
4 boulevards.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman May.
got a couple questions. So even if that additional revenue was taken out, are we still at our ERP limit then?
It's taken out because this all nets
Th-
to
this-
55. So revenue doesn't really impact ERP.
That's
It's
what
just
I'm
if we
asking.
wanna make it
Are we at
taxes
the
neutral.
ERP, I guess? Because
We would be at the ERP by adding the 55, we'd probably just add 55,578 for Asset Works.
But we're saying we can do it without taxing anybody. We don't have to
without
raise
changing the
additional
tax
penny.
rate. Correct.
Gotcha. And you said that the municipal payment, and so how that's calculated is the state sets aside a certain amount every year and then it gets divided up among all the state properties. And that's why all the other state properties are only getting 38% as well.
Right, they fund it across the board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but basically what you're telling me is we're getting shortchanged $400,000. So our taxpayers are paying about 11 cents per thousand on their property taxes to help fund state fair. Is that about right?
About 505 would be funding it 100%.
Mm-hmm. Wow. An additional 505 from them?
No,
would be-
505 would be the total, and of that, they're giving us like 192.
Okay, thank you. Just a interesting point.
Ms. Grill, keep on going.
I think I was pretty much finished. The last thing was about talking about property tax or looking at the revenue estimates. So I think the direction is that we'll look through the revenue estimates and make adjustments as necessary.
Okay.
So we would, I don't know if Alderman May does have some suggestions for amendments. I don't know if you want to go through those. At some point, we would probably need some vote on whether we should consider this, but you might want to wait till he finishes.
Sure.
I actually did have one more question though. This Asset Works, another 55,000. Is it another 55,000 for the subscription, or is it total?
Well, it's going to be an ongoing cost, but last year and this year, we've been in an implementation stage. We have been using reserves for that. But this year, when it gets to year 3, we really can't call that capital when all we're paying for is a subscription, and it's gonna be an operational cost. That's the reason to move it into the expenditures. So it's not unexpected that it's 55 more thousand that we didn't know about. It was part of that total cost over 5 years, but now it's just becoming an operational cost. The implementation is done.
Are
Will
we
be
making
done
use
next
of
year.
it? It's not
We're
sitting
working on
idle?
it.
No,
Okay,
yes.
good. All right.
That's Tony nodding.
Yes, it's being used.
You guys have anything? Anyone else wants it? All right, I'm gonna work bottom up, actually. No, I'm gonna start top down. The judge to the .9. So I had a conversation with Judge Murphy today to figure out what that was all about. And after that conversation, I think we should keep we should move the position for the judge back to either a .75 or a .9. The reason being is it allows, in the future, if someone wants to run for that position, it allows them to keep a private practice. And then, because this is the reason it was put to 1.0, I believe, is for the health and dental benefit. We can change that through policy, per my discussion with Kale, so it actually suggests striking these top 2 items off my list.
Top 2 off your list?
Yeah. Except for the fact that we should make a decision on what we want to do with the judge, .75 or .9, but Murphy, again, was okay with that, with the changes that we would make to the policy.
And just as a starting point, the judge was .75, the budget was proposing to put him at 1.0, and you're proposing to change that to a .9 or a .75.
One of those two, it doesn't really much matter, because we'll accommodate, what this was meant to do, we can accommodate through a policy change, that 1.0, so it's really up to the committee. I went with .9, I don't really think it affects much else,
Yeah.
so. The other one would be alderperson insurance. The adjustments we made last week at council would save about $17,100, so I think we should adjust that. The Common Council Conference, that's a lot of C's, reduce it back to what the amount was in 2019, so that'd be reducing another $3,000 there.
Mike, what's the Common Council Conference?
There's a Common Council Conference budget. It's the one we were just talking about, conferences and seminars.
Or just, for us to go to conferences?
Right,
the
right.
National League of Cities Conference?
Yep.
In the Caymans.
It was,
The Caymans.
I paid for it all myself.
These are bad. National League of Cities, I think we should definitely keep the Wisconsin League of Municipalities. It's been doing a lot of good for us, but the National League of Cities, I don't know if anyone else on the council seems to get any benefit from that, but I have not seen any benefit from that, other than, we send one person a year and it might save us a couple $100, but it doesn't make sense to spend $3,400 to save $200, if that makes, so I'm recommending we cut that
Can I
out.
speak to that, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please, Mayor.
I guess last meeting you had said, what do we get out of them, 1 email a month?
Mm-hmm.
I looked back, and in the past month, I got 16 emails from them. I think that they offer a value, and I know several people in the room have attended these. Some of these conferences are stronger than others, but I really think, I know you've expressed interest but not been able to make it work. I'd really like you to get to one, and I would encourage other people to try to get to one before you make a decision like this. We, especially with at least 2 council members coming on that are gonna be new next year, which I think was the reasoning for putting in additional money to get at least 2 new people to attend the National League of Cities Conference. Every department in the city has got continuing education and training, and I think that this is what the Common Council's continuing education is. And I'm actually, the one in San Antonio coming up, I'm actually presenting about West Allis during the city spotlight. I have developed a network of mayors across the country that I can bounce ideas off of, from Maryland to Illinois to California. There is a first-tier suburbs council, which deals with a lot of the issues in areas that are right next to major cities. The whole Better Block project that we did on 60th and Burnham came from something I saw at one of those conferences years ago. The Business First Open Your Own Business Guide came from a program on a presentation from a city in South Carolina. Right now, there are 2 mayors in Wisconsin that are on their way to DC through the National League of Cities to talk about inclusive housing. That's the mayor of Stevens Point and the mayor of Wisconsin Rapids. Mayor Eli was actually flown in through the National League from Wauwatosa a couple of weeks ago to talk about federal priorities on the national lobbying scene. I think things like block grants always potentially being cut, dealing with homeless and substance abuse issues on the national level are all very important. And I really would encourage you to think very hard about, like you said too, if we save 3,400, you're gonna instantly gobble up. If we send 2 council members, you're gonna instantly lose $200 to $300 in registration fees right off the bat, so you could lose, $600 to $900 in the attendees next year alone. And I would just say, I know Vitaly's attended, I think that gets more than you might realize out of the National League, and I think that's a kind of organization that you get what you put into it, and I think it's a small price for what we get.
And I agree with the mayor on that. There's value in just seeing what other people do and how they do it, and having that point of comparison. And the big point that I was going to bring up, the mayor already mentioned, is the whole Better Block Foundation that all came out of the National League of Cities Conference. That is definitely very valuable to us.
Mr. Chair?
Please.
Just, so, the conference budget actually went up 3,400. I suggested cutting 3,000 of that off. So it would keep a couple hundred extra to accommodate an older person would still be able to go to that conference. I'm just saying, I don't know if we need to be members as common council members. If the mayor is a member, I think some of the department heads might be as well. Is that correct?
This is city
It's a city,
membership.
one city
Citywide
bill.
membership.
Oh, so you can't it's just allocated this way in the, oh, okay.
not all
Well, that
individual
explains
members.
something. Okay. I thought it was individual memberships. Yeah. I'm not proposing to cut it citywide. That wasn't what my goal
Yeah,
was.
If I am understanding the sense that this would do.
Yes.
Um,
It's actually half of it. Fire pays the other half for Spring Industrial Enterprise.
Okay. I was unaware of that.
Welcome.
I
Yeah.
I thought the mayor had their own,
Pay
your
the whole
allocation, we had our allocation. I'm like, well, we can still go to the conference. You're a member. We still get all the benefits, but you're saying that can't happen. Okay, well, that changes things a little bit. Okay, well, unless anyone disagrees, maybe
No,
we should
leave it in.
keep those in there then. And I imagine Common Council conferences would be like, when we have the new member seminar that Wisconsin League of Municipalities puts on, which we want to send the older people to so they know basic Parley Pro and things like that. Okay. Did you account for this, the fire department expense in your numbers? Okay. The fire department had something budgeted for next year that they actually already used 2019 dollars for, so this is just a $6,000 adjustment to that. The Aurora Hospital donation, my recommendation would be to eliminate that. Up until a few years ago, we never gave a donation to the hospital for their yearly drive. It looks like the mayor's recommended budget already cut 15 out of it. This would cut the other 10. So it'd be another way to save and allocate towards other resources. The APWA membership, now this is where, now you've got me thinking, right? So this membership that we have for National League of Cities is citywide, it's just allocated to the departments. Is APWA a per person, or is it?
Yeah.
So right now, and I'm not on the Public Works Committee, Alderman Lysick, you are as well, Vince. The 5 people on the Public Works Committee have memberships automatically to APWA. But my thinking on that is if the staff already is getting the magazines and things like that, that stuff can be shared with the council members. So we could possibly save $975 if we cut the older people, those 5 older people off the Public Works Committee off that membership. So I know this is scraping for pennies, but
Adds up.
I tell you,
Well, it's important for leadership though too. You know, we're asking everyone else to,
yes.
on every budget going forward, and so we need to show some leadership.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Vitale.
I know I'm sitting lower than I'm standing.
I couldn't even see you back there, Vince.
But anyway,
There you are.
reference of the hospital, you know, we have to realize, you know, Aurora, of course, they're running at West Allis Hospital, they ran for years, you know, so now it's Aurora. But the fact is, we still collect from West Allis Hospital over $400,000 per year. So, to me, I mean, the $10,000 that we give really is for the welfare and health for people needing, that money goes towards. It's not somebody, you know, just, you know, hospital, they put it in their pockets. So to me, it does help the community, the needing people, you know, those funds are used for people that need some help. You know, to me, I mean, I can't just take it away the $10,000, we receive over $400,000 per year, you know, so I mean, that's one thing that I always felt that the hospital, we give them that money, you know, I think that's a good gesture in our part, you know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Vitale.
One more?
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yep,
I
please.
just
Mayor.
wanted to also, and this is just for consideration in the discussion, but Aurora does, they sponsor National Night Out, I believe.
I know they have in the past, I'm not sure if they currently do.
I'm just thinking if that $10,000 is a two-way street, we should really consider what we're getting. They did contribute through their service club $20,000 towards the fitness court at Betts Park. I know I felt some heartburn when we're giving them $25,000 when we're struggling to provide services, but I just ask that the council considers, if we start pulling back on some of our generosity, they may start pulling back on some of it.
And Alderman Lysick.
I agree with the mayor and Alderman Vitale. Aurora is our city's largest employer. They've been a great partner with the city. They participate in our charitable events. They always buy tickets and table and make donations for the food breakfast, the Thanksgiving breakfast. They buy it for the annual charity dinner that we have, that our foundation has. So it's kind of a reciprocal thing. I mean, they always buy a table or so for these events and make contributions. And I think in recognition of the fact that they put on a number of programs for city residents, and they invite older people. I know Alderman Haas, Alderman Reinke, and myself have been to some of their programs on drug awareness, mental health issues, that type of thing. So they add a benefit to the community, a very big benefit, and in my opinion, they've been a good partner. And I don't think we want to hurt that relationship. I think we want to foster it, and you know, when they have a fundraiser for a specific activity at West Allis Memorial, they have once a year, and we make a contribution towards that. I think it's an appropriate gesture on our part.
Okay. Alderman May, keep going.
So there's one more, and this one, I talked to Rebecca, the position that we're creating,
We have a events coordinator position already, and one of the initiatives that person is responsible for is working with the mayor to get sponsorships for our celebrations, such as the 4th of July events, the fireworks, and the parades. So, to provide a stretch goal for them, I think that they could eliminate an additional $10,000 for that and can work to get sponsorships for that event.
so that's where that came from.
Okay. Okay.
So do we have to act on each of these separately, or get consensus, or,
Yeah, I think that it'd be best to act on each of them separately. I think some, you know, two that we're gonna have some difference of the minds on are the Aurora donation and the conference. But Alderman May, with our discussion, you're willing to not just strike the conference and not make that amendment? Is that
I
correct?
think that training is necessary for new alder people.
Okay, thank you for that.
Is that the conference or is that the National League of Cities? I'm sorry. Is it, which one is it that you're,
Well, definitely the National League of Cities, I think we're gonna have to put back in, because
okay. And
So-
then also the $3,000 for the conferences?
And what does that get us again? Another, it gets us the new,
That's
Yeah,
training for
Right.
new
Yeah.
alders.
Yeah, they have that governing 101 in
Yeah.
Green Bay. I think that's
It's
valuable.
the league, the league annual conference and then the National League of Cities attendance.
yeah, I'm okay with striking both of those. Especially the Wisconsin Conference is phenomenal. There's a lot to be learned and gained. Everyone should go to one of those.
So my proposal then is we vote as a committee on the Aurora Hospital donation singly, and then we move on to the other items as a group, if you wish, if no one has an objection there. All right, so yeah, Alderman May, can you make a motion on the Aurora Hospital donation?
Sure. I would move to cut the Aurora Hospital donation
To zero?
2-0?
to zero.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. So it's 2 in favor, 3 opposed, so the motion fails.
And I would move the other changes shown in the table, including the alderperson insurance adjustment as a credit, the fire expense as a credit, the APWA cancellation, and then the 4th of July as well.
And you want the judge to .9, or you deal with that as a
Maybe a separate item.
separate item?
Yeah,
So we're not
top- the
including
top
the
two.
judge to .9.
Correct.
So there's a motion, is there a
Second.
second? We have a motion and a second, any discussion on those issues? All in favor, oh, please, Alderperson Reinke.
As far as July 4th, I have tried in the past, when I was chair of the committee, to get sponsors. I've sent many letters out to businesses in our community, even out of our community, and I have been very unsuccessful. I agree we should probably try again for the sponsorships, but if it isn't successful, then I would hate to see the 10,000 taken out of the funding for July 4th, because that is a very successful community function. We have a lot of participation, and I would hesitate just to seek out the sponsors if no sponsor comes forth. $10,000, that takes care of most of our fireworks. Okay, you want to do without the fireworks? I mean, that is something to consider. but it would have to be a very, very heavy worded letter to get our businesses to respond, especially in light of sometimes the business itself is having difficulties. There are many successful businesses in West Allis, so the letter would have to be very, very forthcoming.
All caps?
But as I indicated to you, I did try.
I think, Mr. Chair,
Please.
one of the things we've been discussing for 2020 is to try to have companies basically buy in as a package and have different levels
Sponsorship.
at the beginning of the year rather than having to go to them 4 or 5 times for various events. So see if we can get $2,000 commitments, $5,000 commitments, $500 commitments from various levels of, companies and businesses, large and small, and trying to have them in January, February commit to sponsoring throughout the year, and then, looking for title sponsorships for things like the fireworks if we need them.
Oh, it's an excellent idea.
If
I certainly support the idea, it's just that, okay, it has to be done
Yeah, and I think
very carefully.
Caitlin and I have discussed really visiting personally, and
And I think that would probably
Arm twisting.
be
Yeah.
helpful. Mhm.
Mr. Chair.
My concern is though, if you're taking it out and we don't get anything in return,
Yeah.
that's my concern.
Ms. Grill.
There
Oh.
was at one
Oh.
time, I'm sorry, there was at one time, one of the banks that sponsored the entire fireworks program. But Wells Fargo it was at that time, but they pulled out, and so the city is footing the whole bill. So,
Didn't you get enough bang for the buck?
a matter of consideration. If you feel that it's gonna be very successful, fine, but if it isn't, then
And I plan to ask Peggy what banks we keep our money in, and then
Oh, there you go. That's it. Nice.
go to them first.
We have a lottery, and the winner gets to light the fuse.
thank you.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Chair.
And Ms. Grill.
One of the things that was before the Administration and Finance Committee last week and the Common Council had to do with the sponsorship policy, allowing more of that to occur so people would actually have their names attached to the donation. So we're putting the framework around that to make that initiative successful with the council passing that last week. And I just wanted to comment that with the changes that were currently under consideration, that was equal to $34,075.
All right.
34.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Alderman May.
just on that last item with the 4th of July, I don't want you to think this is Mike May's idea of coming in, let's go cut the 4th of July parade. That's not at all what I'm suggesting. I think the sponsorship policy and the idea that the mayor's office has to go after these and the confidence from the city administrator and such, that's why it's in here. This isn't Mike May wants to cut the 4th of July. I don't think the mayor wants to, nobody wants to cut it. It's just a general confidence that now that we can attach a name to the sponsorship, that there might be more willing because they get the name recognition out of it where they didn't before. That's my understanding.
Mr. Chair, I already got blamed for canceling Christmas last year because the parade.
That was the
It's
weather.
camera action too.
It was an act of God, not an act of the mayor. It's the weather.
Aren't they the same?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Again, any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, please, yes.
The Alderman insurance, what does that consist of? I'm sorry, I
Which one did we keep?
haven't heard about that.
Yeah, Alderman Mays can answer that for you. It was his proposal. And
So what we did last week at council was, what we had done during the employee benefit committee action and everything is we had changed it so older people in the next election would pay half their premiums in order to be on insurance. The policy change last week was that anyone who hasn't served 3 consecutive terms prior to 2020, anyone who hasn't done that would have to pay the full premium. So yourself, Alderman Vitale, others, Alderman Rote, would still have that 0.5, but anybody new would have to pay the full premium. So that's where the 17,100 comes from. Because we have at least 2 older people who are leaving, and it will That's just two.
But I
Yeah.
wanted to know the background.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? On the amendments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the chair votes aye, I forgot to.
And then,
we're,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
One more?
Sure, go ahead.
Moving the judge position to the .9 FTE. With an
Okay.
understanding, I'll be coming forward with a policy change next week to help flush out what that 1.0 FTE was supposed to accommodate, so.
And is there a second on that?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on that amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. And then we need to vote on this. I don't, the funding options breakdown here.
So, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Credit card option.
Rebecca?
Yes,
So based on the changes, we don't have the 50,000 of amendments. We've got, how much did you say?
a 34.75,
075?
yep.
Okay, so that means we still have to cover an additional 21,000 now, approximately?
Well, not necessarily, so this would be recommended to go into emergency operational repairs, so we have no idea what that could be.
Okay,
So,
so basically what we're saying
You're
is,
not allocating this.
yeah, the emergency operational repairs would be 34,000 as opposed to
yeah.
50. Okay,
And
thank
if
you.
it's in excess of that, we would have to come to the council and move something around or look for something else, so. So there's nothing else that you
Need to
don't need to
change,
get to the 50 necessarily, so.
I move approval of this amendment to the budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right.
Mr. Chair, do we need an approval of the budget as amended?
So
Or do
we,
you want to wait till next week?
Probably next week would be better.
yeah,
We'll
yes,
discuss.
definitely next week. I say that just because I'm agreeing with the folks in charge here. All right. And then we want to move on to the 2024 capital improvement program.
Not sure if there's any questions on that at all. Everyone received a copy of that. on
Did
the
we
fifth?
discuss this last time?
Yeah.
We did, yeah, it's
There's
just on
no
our
changes
agenda
or
and
to it?
okay.
Pretty much that first category that we just talked about was
Credit card category?
capital.
Basically approves this.
Yeah, so you
Okay,
could
something.
hold it and move it at the same time as you would consider the budget. That might be the best approach in case
Okay.
something
Comes up,
comes up
Perfect.
in the next week.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
like
Okay.
like a car gets canceled.
So yeah. There's no objection to holding item 2 then?
Yeah.
All right. Then anything else properly come before the committee? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.